Today's podcast is brought to you by Blue Canary. The bird has landed on beautiful Bainbridge Island, conveniently located at 499 Madison Avenue. ASE Master Technician Clint Ramsey brings over 15 years of experience, award-winning diagnostic skill, and a desire to reinvent the automotive repair experience. Schedule an appointment online at bluecanary.biz or call them today at 206-451-4220.
I'm Maria Metzler, the Executive Director of Helpline House. The global pandemic has affected us all differently. If you or your neighbors need food assistance, mental health counseling, rental assistance, or Parks and Rec vouchers, please reach out. Helpline House can help in many ways. Find us on the web at helplinehouse.org. It's what we do. Neighbor helping neighbor.
I got something for your mind, body, and soul. I got something for your mind, body, and soul.
You have found the B.I.STANDER Podcast. Now here's your host with the most, Tiny Tim.
What's good, Podcastville? You found the B.I.STANDER Podcast. Welcome to the show. We are officially back at Studio 15. It feels good. Today we are with South Ward candidate Jon Quitslund. Did I say that correctly, Jon?
Yes, that's right.
Happy generic time to the listeners, and let's talk about your upcoming election for City Council. I understand that you're a graduate from the high school here.
Yes, I did many years ago.
Yeah. Has it changed any?
Oh, lots of changes. And I had a career as an educator. Coming back to the island, I thought, well, I'll get involved. Maybe I'll be counseling students from a little bit, things like that. I just didn't find room for that with the other things that came my way that opened up for me coming back to the island. This was in the year 2000, so I graduated from high school in 1957.
Wow. And what is the big thing we're missing from 1957 at the high school now in the 2021?
The music is different.
Oh, yeah. You're a blues enthusiast, right?
I am a blues enthusiast, yes.
Have you spent any time in Chicago?
Just passing through. I've never been to a blues club in Chicago, but heard the music in Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. We lived in Washington, D.C. from 1964 to 2000, and we lived on Capitol Hill. Jazz and blues, the live music, long list of concerts I could talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Robert Cray, for example.
Yeah. He's from Seattle, right?
From the area. I think he grew up in Tacoma. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
But, we tried to get into a show in Seattle, and it was too crowded. So I just lay for him when he came to Washington, D.C.
Do you play any musical instruments?
No. I was in the high school band, and I played first trombone, and then I shifted to French horn. I made a good tone on the French horn, but I didn't have much sort of musical coordination and the like.
Yeah, I'm pretty good with a cowbell or a triangle, but other than that, not much else.
You know the joke about more cowbell?
No, but I've seen the Saturday Night Live skit.
That's the thing, yeah.
Christopher Walken, and that's got to be the most hilarious skit they ever did.
Yeah, my brother Gary turned me on to that.
Yeah, there's people still selling T-shirts that say more cowbell.
More cowbell. There was an Obama-related T-shirt that.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
That's funny. And now they bring them out to soccer games too. All the parents are hitting them while the kids are playing. They get tired of yelling. Hey, so you spent some time on Quality Bainbridge, Sustainable Bainbridge.
Sustainable Bainbridge, yes.
What is the difference between quality and sustainability?
Well, the Quality Bainbridge, that was kind of an election-related, not a subgroup actually, but just some members from Sustainable Bainbridge, specifically Meredith Gale, formed with friends around the Quality Bainbridge label. I was never involved in that. And I even thought Quality Bainbridge, that's got the wrong ring to it.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, and they've pulled back from that altogether.
Now, tell me exactly what Sustainable Bainbridge is compromised of. That's what got the recycling movement going on here? And
Diane Landry, back in the day, when she really developed the focus on zero waste, it was an activity associated with Bainbridge, a project, let's say, under the broad umbrella of Sustainable Bainbridge. Diane chose not to be a board member. There were other board members, like Barry Peters, for example, who was involved in establishing the Bainbridge Community Broadcasting at the very beginning. Other people, and I guess now Diane is a member of the board. I've been to one of their meetings. I went to their meeting to just hobnob a little bit and say I'm running for council now, and I like your engagement with, they won't endorse me. It's not that kind of a thing, but I just have friends there. Diana, let's see. I can't think of all the names of people I know there still.
And then
Deb Rudnick, that was.
Yeah, Deb.
Yeah.
Does a good job too.
Yeah.
Both of them are tireless workers, and they
Indeed.
set the example for others to follow, and that's strong leadership in that organization. So kudos to them, and from the bystander to you. Then you got involved. Did you leave that and directly get involved in the Planning Commission?
It wasn't like one thing leading to another. I was interested in the Planning Commission at the very time that when Barry Peters was a council member, I applied, and I was interested in the shoreline management program, or the shoreline master program, as it's sometimes called, as it was just forming up. And I knew the Planning Commission would be actively involved in the development of that. And I was passed over for a year, but I had another chance the next year. So I've had 9 years of experience there. The main thing, I think, that was the foundation for my interest in the Planning Commission, and even if you might say my credentials on the Planning Commission, starting in 2006, I responded to a call for citizen involvement in what was called the 2025 Growth Advisory Committee. Mayor Cordenoy at that time took that initiative in connection with planning for, not for the comprehensive plan update exactly, but just anticipating the need to manage an allocation of some growth for the island. And that was
it's mandated by the state.
Yeah,
we
that's
have
right.
To grow.
So
absorb growth.
From the very beginning of our existence as a municipality, and the first comprehensive plan and so on, we've had that obligation to plan for, and that was a very positive experience. Some people I knew already in that group, others I got acquainted with. And the leadership from the planning department staff was kind of taking us forward and thinking about so on. And the writing of the final report for the 2025 Growth Advisory Committee, I was directly involved in that, given my experience, academic experience writing, and my commitment to the ideas that we had to address. There were conflicting or differing views that went into the formation of a whole set of recommendations, and then that was presented to the City Council, and it promptly died because certain members of the City Council thought, this initiative from the mayor isn't something that we want to go along with.
That's crazy.
Crazy indeed. Yeah. Just one example of the kinds of dysfunction that have sort of plagued the efforts from the beginning of our existence as a municipality. So,
and you have a literature background, correct?
I do indeed. I went from high school here to Reed College. And
where's Reed College at?
Reed College in Portland, Oregon.
Okay. You went to Portlandia.
Well, it wasn't Portlandia then, but Reed students referred to Harvard as the Reed of the East.
Oh, okay.
And that's comparing a multiversity with a huge endowment to a modest liberal arts college with a graduating class of 90 or so students back in the day. But I had a wonderful experience there and met people from all over this country and many foreign students. Very cosmopolitan place, cutting edge, radical, and also at the same time very deeply traditional. Starting with a humanities program in the freshman year that they always read one of the two Homeric epics and go forward from there. So anyway, I ended up in literature, having tried a philosophy major and deciding that, well, philosophy as a discipline as it's taught in college isn't something that I'll be really good at. So I need to be preparing for something that I will enjoy teaching.
Did Reed set you up for postgraduate studies as well?
It did. I went from Reed to Princeton, which was a huge change of pace and, well, not pace exactly, but,
Do they call Princeton the Harvard of the East?
Not very many students from Reed went to Princeton, but I liked it there because their program for literature was selective but small, and they selected students that they expected to graduate. There was a few dropouts, nobody washing out, I think, but just a few people who decided, well, this isn't really a place where I'm going to prosper.
How many people were in your high school senior class when you graduated?
The class of 57, I think, was 58 students.
So there was almost double that in college. Yeah. And then you go to a big school like Princeton. Was that a shock?
Well, even, compared to both Harvard and Yale, the student body at Princeton, at least in my day, it was big, at the same time modest. And Princeton's a small town. It's not different from New Haven or Cambridge and Boston and all that. Of course, we were close to New York, and I enjoyed the proximity to New York. And my wife and I got up to New York. I was married after my first year as a student.
At Princeton, postgraduate?
Yeah.
All right, you mentioned shoreline. Water, is it water management or just
shoreline management? Yeah, shoreline management master program. That's the full title.
So since I don't have a luxury home on the beach, even though this is an island and we're surrounded by water, I'm not that familiar on that topic compared to other council issues. Can you kind of hit me to what the struggle has been?
Yeah.
Well,
the making of the currently enforced and in place SMP, I'll just call it that. It was a very contentious process because shoreline property owners, many of whom consider themselves devout environmentalists, but at the same time people with property rights that needed to be protected and even asserted against the regulatory regime that environmentalists were you might say imposing.
How so, though?
Well, the Shoreline Management Program is an environmental program. It's not. It doesn't it's not built on the idea that you have to balance this against that. In effect, the balance is very important, but the primary impetus for the shoreline management program is being consistent with guidelines from the State Department of Ecology, and those guidelines are very, very definite. And in practice, in this contentious process that involved, I think, a good deal of misunderstanding on the part of
when was this drawn up?
Well, I think the process started in 2012. No, even before that. Let's say before 2012, the process was completed, but it has still been subject to litigation since 2014. So the date on what we have, it's incredibly elaborate, and
so
I was
something
while I was
that's
on the plan,
in effect right now. It is in effect or in litigation?
It is in effect. It is still being
litigated,
contested by an organization of shoreline property owners.
And does that have to do with anything about beach and easement rights?
Not really beach and easement rights. I guess it would be, I think the contentious issues are what can I do, to what extent can I modify my property? To what extent can I build onto an older structure? Because many property owners on the shorelines have either they bought a house on the shoreline many, many years ago, or they've bought a house recently that they may want to modernize.
Yeah, there's a couple on Murden Cove I can think of right away.
Yeah.
That had just been sitting there forever and ever, and they're not houses that you can move.
So
move
the contentious issue had to do. One of the contentious issues was the shoreline management program refers to non-conforming lots, non-conforming structures, and also non-conforming uses. And many shoreline property owners, I wouldn't say all, but the people who are most engaged in contention hated the term non-conforming because it made it seem like they were not good citizens.
Yeah, people work hard and buy property, and they want to represent their rights and their ability to build what they want because that's their domain.
Yeah.
And I'm all for it as long as it's not crushing the environment.
Yeah. They preferred to say we have grandfathered rights.
Smart vernacular.
But the history of the term grandfathered, that goes back to Reconstruction the rollback of Reconstruction after the Civil War. Grandfathered rights are if your grandfather could vote, you're entitled to vote. And you know what that hurts. So that sort of thing, that was just one of the reasons why grandfathering was not a word that we wanted to use in the SMP.
Language, yeah.
And I was involved. I was on the sidelines. I was writing a blog for for Sustainable Bainbridge at the time. I was on the sidelines watching these controversies and trying to interpret them for the public as to what was at stake and kind of can't we all get along?
If anything I've learned over the last 4 years, we can't all get along.
Yeah.
That's why we need to invite people in, not out, for sure.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So what made you decide to get into this city council race? What was the driving factor?
There are so many things that the council, both, maybe a couple of years ago, the council committed to things or got something rolling. For example, there is now a climate action plan, and that arose from concern on the council and concern in the community on the part of activists alert to the impacts of climate.
Yeah, I think we can thank Jay Inslee's run for presidency to put that to the forefront as well.
Yeah. Well, it was a live issue for a good many people who set to work actually, within the comprehensive plan update process, which I was very much involved in on the Planning Commission. We undertook to put climate concerns in the fabric of the comprehensive plan. And so the question when it comes to implementing the comprehensive plan, introducing things into ordinances, introducing things into public programs that will respond to impacts and maybe promote adaptations and avoid impacts when it's possible, or minimize impacts, that sort of thing. So let's see, where do I go next? That's just one of the rather ambitious large-scale plans that involve
so you were
various kinds of legislation.
You saw it from the planning side, and now you want to see it from the implement
exactly
side?
From
start to finish.
Yeah.
Let's get it done.
And the Planning Commission and Council are in many ways interdependent bodies.
Yeah,
They're not equal. They're not equal. The Planning Commission recommends, and the council decides.
Yeah.
I've had trouble with recommendations not being followed, or not. Just I wouldn't say it's not so much that recommendations from the Planning Commission are rejected, but more like it's hard for the council to get around to actually paying attention and understanding the rationale and understanding maybe some urgency.
There's a fair point. Do you feel like city council meetings are not focused and going way too long and somewhat divisive, that we're not getting regular business done on a weekly basis?
Simple answer to that is yes.
Okay.
The question is, what kinds of interpretation do you want to place on it? I think the council has understood that they were in trouble, and it didn't just start just before COVID, or it didn't start just recently.
Yeah, we saw people dropping off council.
Yeah.
Prominent council members.
Right. Well, I'm glad you're alert to that. Christy Carr took the place of Matthew Turman. Cole Medina left the island for career reasons, but I think also because he was disillusioned with the direction that the council was taking. He's tired of it.
Knowing Cole personally, I feel like he was up against a lot of things, and he tried his best. And there was a certain point where you say, "Hey, I could probably move on and impact community in the right ways." And it's nice to have Brenda on council too.
Yeah.
So let's talk South Ward.
Yeah.
Beautiful area of the island, a density-based area for housing. What else is cracking down on the south end? The recent fire. And then how the fire department reacted, and the structure of fire hydrants and the water tanker and other fire departments having to come onto island to put that out. On surface level, from what I know, it seemed like quite a debacle, but it also brought up areas of concern for me. Is there enough of a water system? Is there enough fire hydrants? Is there enough access and employees to put out a fire on the south end?
You know more about the fire than I do. I did read about it some this morning, and I understand that the fire department has come in for maybe misplaced criticism, But it seems like, well, I don't know if the infrastructure is there. It seems to me.
Well, here's what I believe, if I can pontificate for a moment. I know you're my guest, and I want to hear from you. But since this is your area, and it's, in my mind, outwardly a concern, I don't think there was an – here's what I gleaned, however you say it, that firemen had been put into paramedic roles, and there wasn't enough staff to deploy the 40,000-gallon tanker from the Hyla fire station there, and that I believe one of the fire hydrants closest to the fire was not operable for some reason. And then lastly, I also believe there is a mechanism at that fire station to pump salt water onto a fire that's maybe a shoreline type fire.
Yes.
But I don't think that machinery has been I don't think we can just pull it out and use it. If we have it, we should be able to use that as a resource. If we have a 40,000-gallon tanker there, we should be able to use it as a resource. The poor sap, sorry for using that word, buddy, but he moved into his house, had a barbecue, a housewarming. He'd only been there in a week, and now his house is torched, and he's looking for a new home. And that's just got to be so heartbreaking. And we put all this money into these new fire stations, and I want to know that I can trust that that cops will show up, the water will show up. You know, simple things that we take for granted sometimes. And putting all our tax dollars into 2 shiny new fire stations and then having this fire just decimate this person's house. And, of course, I can be wrong. I haven't seen the house. I haven't talked to the person. But as they say in the movies, rumor on the street, that's what's going on.
Well, I feel that in many ways infrastructure, looking ahead into the next 4 years, if I'm on the council, infrastructure it's a broad category, but it's a very important part of what needs the council's attention.
Well, let's break it down. You know, we need sidewalks, we need multi-ability, we need charging stations, we need a ferry that goes electric. We have a want list that's longer than my arm. The fire station it has to have an infrastructure. The police station has to be rebuilt, and people need to relocate in the courtroom. And we've got roundabouts coming in. There's a lot of planning when it comes to infrastructure. So
we have an understaffed, under-equipped planning department. Of course, Public Works is Public Works and Planning Department
work together.
They do work together. In my perception, they work together quite well. That didn't used to be the case. But I don't have any knowledge of the places in the code that determine a design for the fire hydrant infrastructure. Maybe that's something that's not been attended to, because I don't think the fire department is in a position to say to the council, we've got a plan, or there isn't an adequate plan. It needs to be addressed.
Why do you think they can't bring that up, though? I mean, what's their solution then?
Well, I'd say that it comes down to imperfections in the liaison or the interface between city administration and the council. The council, to a large extent, they decide what their issues are. They decide what their agenda will be. It is a negotiating process with the city administrator, but we've not had the leadership at the top in the administration for years now, not since Doug Schultz left.
Shout out, Doug. Hope you're doing good there in Banning, California.
Yeah.
Good man. Talked to him a lot, and he's somebody that opened my eyes to a lot of what's going on and took the time to have a conversation.
I'm glad you had that experience because I admired him, although I wish I'd had more interaction with him. He
stayed behind a desk most of the time.
He managed. He was a poker player in a way. That was my perception of him.
That's a good perception.
And we had a really cordial, loose-jointed conversation basically on his last day. I had some observations that he was amused by.
I did his exit interview, and it was telling.
Yeah.
But I understand. I've yet to meet the new city manager. Have you had any action with him?
He's terrific.
Awesome.
I had a half-hour conversation with him. I wish it had been an hour, but I wasn't in a position to say, look, there's more I need to say. I'll be in close touch with him. I know that Christy Carr, whose place I'm taking on the council, Christy Carr has wised him up in a lot of different ways, helped him to get to find
feet on the ground,
get feet on the ground, and an understanding of the problems that really need to be solved sooner rather than later.
What are some of your top problems that you think need to be solved?
Well, my top issue is the need for comprehensive housing policies.
What does that look like in your eyes?
Well, I could go on and on. But the main thing is that we're serving a very high-end clientele of sellers and buyers. It's a runaway marketplace for a few people. It supports a large community of real estate agents and
home builders
and builders and people in renovation and modification of homes. That's a tremendous part of the island's special character. But there are lots of people left out. There are lots of people who work on the island, have to live a considerable distance away in order to have something that their salary will enable them to buy or rent. And as a result, in my parents' generation, my dad was born on the island and he came back here as soon as possible at the end of World War II. We arrived, I started school in October of 1945, first grade. And what my dad was coming back to was an island not very different from what he had left when he graduated from high school, went to Washington State College, as it was then, in the context of the Depression. This is a blue-collar community, sparse population. We were truly isolated. We did have a ferry system, but it wasn't as reliable as it is now.
Lumber, creosote, and strawberries, right?
Yeah, and it was there was an industrial base to the economy, and there were people working blue-collar jobs at Boeing and in the Bremerton shipyard.
A lot of shipyard
and
people.
There were people basically in the subsistence economy in agriculture on the island and so on and so forth. And there was a certain commercial base, but Winslow was a tiny place, and the neighborhood stores had pretty much died away that had served the first two generations of people on the island, first two settling generations. Anyway, it was my parents' generation that built a more white-collar, middle-class, and commuting population, families supported by one income typically, and that's at home. So anyway, all of that middle-class center for things has been transformed by increasing population,
Let's say
to be
privileged
more
elite
and
type.
more and more upwardly mobile. And people who came here 20 years ago, like me, I couldn't buy the house I'm living in now.
Oh, I've been here, I think, 12 years, and I couldn't buy the house I'm living in right now. I can barely afford the property tax on it because it's increased so much.
Uh-huh.
It's not what I was looking forward to. Yeah, I'm thankful that home has more value, but guess what? That means I have to have a bigger budget to pay for it every single year, and it has to keep growing. Because the tax assessor comes by, and that word is golden.
And people complain about taxes, but that's not the only problem.
Let's quickly talk about taxes. We're talking about an increase in tax for the Parks Department, correct? On the same ballot you're on?
Yes, that's right. Well, it's actually the primary ballot.
Yeah.
It's simultaneous with the primary ballot. I'm not voting in the primaries, but I have that one ballot due on in fact
August 3rd.
I haven't posted it yet, but I filled it out. It's not a big increase.
Right, but then there's the talk
continuation
about
and so on. Yeah,
and I guess I haven't led you to water here yet. There's a $13 million acquisition of a private gym on the table that could potentially be funded by that tax increase, and seems to be a conflict of interest in some people's mind whether that's a Parks Department resource that they should value and purchase. What are your thoughts on it, both the tax and purchase?
One of my good friends posted something on
World Wide Web?
on Facebook. This is elitist. We shouldn't vote. We shouldn't vote for this levy because the purchase of this of the athletic club and the charging fees for the use of it. It should be free.
Yeah.
Well, but no. So anyway, and she was immediately answered by another friend of mine who said, "No, Lisa, you don't understand," and so on.
You just outed Lisa, by the way.
I didn't say a last name. I know several Lisas.
We'll go with that.
Lisa Macchio on the Planning Commission was the person I was starting from. Anyway, and Maridel Gale was the person who answered back. And I think Deb Rudnick also answered back, said no, the Parks Department has many different activities. They need this levy for their operating budget and so on. I'm persuaded by that. I think actually this is an asset that will be of use to more people, some of whom will not be paying the membership fee that the existing clientele have been paying. I think planning for the use of this facility and how it will be financed, that's a moving train, and I don't trust everybody. I don't trust all the Parks Department decisions and policies and the rest of it, because it's a kind of a fiefdom that I've had some issues with in the past. But I do think that they're trustworthy and they're going in the right direction with the continuation of services and perhaps improvement of services and and enlarging the client base. And they're entitled to
have a go
charge people for what they're getting. Mm-hmm. Some things can't be free.
Right. I wasn't thinking that it should be free, but
yeah.
Let's get on to the housing crisis.
Come back to
and
that.
density.
That's the big thing. Yeah.
Are you pro density? Do you think we still need to grow? How do you see us growing in the future? What are your overall thoughts on growth? Density
and development have been swear words for as long as I've been around. Mm-hmm. That's more than 20 years. And it's always density and development are always played against the value of the environment, the unspoiled environment that we all value. And I've been on the environmental side of things, and I believe fervently in stewardship as a duty of the city council and the whole Kobe government, stewardship of all of our resources, and stewardship at the individual and family level. Your property is to be cared for because it's you're building value if you're taking care of it, and if you're recklessly cutting trees down, that's short-sighted. Just because there's too much shade on this window or something like that. Anyway, I do think, and I express that in a lot of the municipal code language that I've worked on over the years. Anyway, coming back to density, we have not kept up with the requirements with planning for the city of Winslow, the town of Winslow, let's say. Okay. The mixed-use town center, the Winslow study area, as it's called on the zoning map. We've not had adequate regulation for the development that happens, and we see atrocious development that was possible given the rules for base density and bonus density, and so on and so forth. That's all been poorly managed.
Well, haven't we been selling bonus density? That's
the darn problem. People, and we have not gotten. The plan in the Winslow Master Plan is for to have this base and bonus to incentivize mixed-use development, but we haven't seen that. We haven't required. We've allowed banks. A bank will buy a lot and they'll put a big building on it. Look at the Bank of America, which is they don't even have the business to justify 5 days a week opening.
Yeah, they're barely open.
They're barely open, but they've got this big building. When Bank of America office should be a corner, be a key tenant in a 2 or 3 story building that accommodates housing as well.
I think it should be a kiosk.
Well, yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
That's a smaller footprint.
So we have not gotten the mixed-use development that we need. We don't need to add much density. We just need to provide more direction to the kinds of development that we need.
That fit our character of our beautiful
because
Bainbridge
development
Island.
and density are not the same thing.
Right.
People say there should be no upzones. Well, that's
a blanket statement.
That's a blanket statement. People say no upzones because somebody else is getting the benefit of an upzone and I'm not getting that benefit. It's the zero-sum thinking. If you get something that I don't have, I'm going to be against that. Well, that's not the way a community is supposed to operate.
How did you feel about the 2 projects Michael Burns tried to do with the hotel and then the low-income housing on Madison Avenue, mixed-use retail?
2 very different projects, and I was involved in the Planning Commission review of the
all right, give me the dirt.
Hotel.
Give me the dirt.
Well,
was it a good plan or no?
It wasn't dirt. But
so why did it not happen?
The planning for that hotel, it started out. He had a dream. Michael Burns had a dream of a boutique type hotel that would include a performance space and be a cultural facility and elegant accommodations and the like.
Much like BIMA is.
Well, yes, serving some of the same purposes. Michael Burns' wife, I knew her quite well, and she organized monthly concerts in the community center. But Michael had the idea of it, something more high-toned, you might say, or more of a boutique operation.
Yeah, I love it when the music on the lawn there in
and
Winslow.
But the economics took charge. of the size, not the size of the building, but the number of units and the intensity of the use. And we, on the Planning Commission, we were unwilling to grant a conditional use given the decision criteria that we had that we thought were maybe not violated, but the decision criteria were not satisfied by the plan as it was presented to us, with the intensity of comings and goings of clients and comings and goings of all the staff and operations that are required to operate the size of the project that and the basic design, very elegant and beautiful and environmentally amazing.
Why was he not allowed an opportunity to correct that?
What do you mean to correct?
Like, go ahead.
To size it back?
Scale it down.
It wasn't going to work. It wasn't going to work, and it wasn't presented to us. And the Planning Commission, when they find fault with a project, they can't redesign it for somebody, and you can't say
he could come back with the redesign himself, couldn't he, and spend his own money?
Well, they didn't feel that they didn't feel the project was at risk.
Who didn't?
The applicants, the architect and Michael Burns and the hotel management company that he was working with that said, you need to have 90 rooms, and they had to settle for 87, I think, something like that. Anyway, that's on account of how the economy forces things upon us that we're not prepared to deal with. And coming back to affordable housing, the city needs to be investing more in planning, investing more in making affordable housing, workforce housing, middle class or middle, they talk about the missing middle, housing of either small homes or condominiums
homes,
or
ADUs.
Multi-family construction, let's say a 4-unit
duplexes, stuff like that.
Duplexes and the thing. We're not coming up with solutions to the problem.
So what was the problem with the space on Madison then?
There's not much of a problem there. I admire that project. I've been the liaison to the Design Review Board. The project hasn't come to the Planning Commission except for a public meeting.
Public comment. Okay.
But we don't have the completed application yet.
So that could still be live and in the works as a mixed retail housing space.
What it is, the project on Madison is housing that will be owned and managed by Housing Resources Bainbridge for income qualified tenants at like an 80% of AMI level.
AMI meaning?
That's area median income, which is a significant figure. People in that type of affordable housing are sort of below middle class income, but they're in good jobs and working. The people in the Ferncliff Village, for example. We're not talking about poor people. We're not talking about disabilities and extreme neediness. We're talking about the service economy that we all rely upon, and people in nursing careers as opposed to physicians' careers, that sort of thing.
Right.
So I like the project. They're rental units for one thing.
Mm-hmm. And there's very few rental.
The island, the rents are sky high for not very good value because there's so much more demand than there is supply.
Yeah.
And so adding to the supply is going to be, it's smart business, and it also serves the community, I believe. There will be a, part of the plan for that development is a community building, which is also the administrative office for the rental business, if you will. I think it's beautifully designed, and it's not so much a Jim Cutler project as it is a Bruce Anderson project. He's been the architect, and he's worked with people who are experienced in the development of mid-range as well as income-qualified, affordable construction. So I think it's going to be a good project. I'd like to see a little bit more of the HRB type affordability, but the mid-range, if
why do you think HRB struggles so much to get enough funding to really make an impactful difference on this island? It's
not that I think they just haven't had the visibility. They haven't had the city support. We don't have the regulations that will give them what they need.
Are you thinking we need a regulation that mandates that we funnel money to HRB?
I think mandatory housing of a certain kind. I would define affordability in a very broad spectrum, including the middle, at and a little above the area median income. That will, this is it's all speculative. Anything that you mandate is an iffy proposition from the point of view of legality, because you have to have regulations that will stand the challenge that somebody says, no, you're taking a property right from me if you tell me what I have to do, and you tell me you're exercising a control on my ability to earn money with my construction on this property, that sort of thing. And I haven't been able to see to the depths of that well, but I do believe mandatory requirements for affordable housing of some sort can be managed, because if you allow a fee in lieu, you're regulating. Well, I don't know. I can't finish that particular sentence. So these are things that, I don't know, if you listen to all the council candidates, you get a perspective. Some people are Clarence Marwaki, I think, is definitely on the same boat, in the same boat that I'm in.
Similar goals and stuff.
Yeah.
So, as we finish up here,
yeah,
what are some of the things that you're just adamant about that you want to get involved in immediately becoming a council member?
Well, one thing is more cooperation within the council and more cooperation between the council and all the other parties to the whole process of governance. The council tends to sit at a distance or at a higher level and look down upon the planning commission. Those guys are just appointed, and they're doing a job, and they're linked with the planning department. Mm-hmm. City council, over the years, have been suspicious of the interests of the professional planners, that they're supposed to be working creatively, constructively with all of the city staff, but
there's a ghost in the room.
Well, you see council members who will say, what I'm hearing from my constituents I can't trust those folks.
It's an open bidding process for projects, right?
And the potential for distrust, it's around every corner.
Right.
And the more you distrust somebody else, the less people really should feel obliged to trust you. Mm-hmm. Because, I think trust builds upon itself. You can make a mistake and you can say, well, now I find I can't trust you. But you should start out feeling, we can do business. We can talk about the issues. We can come to conclusions.
It can be win-win.
It can be win-win. Yeah. But faction has always come into play. The thing I always remember, when I was first paying attention to the council, Christine Rolfus was in her second term as a member of the city council.
And didn't she go on to be legislative senator?
Yeah, she's now in the Senate. But she was a swing vote. The council is typically
number 7.
Yeah. And from my point of view, and the people I was working with, kind of on the side of environmental advocacy, sometimes Christine would disappoint us. And I questioned her about a vote that she had taken. Uh-huh. And she said, John, you have to understand this. I don't do protest votes. She wanted to be part of the decision-making, part
more
of the five
of
or part
invite
of
people in than out.
Yeah. And she had influence. People knew they had to if it was 3 versus 3 and her in the middle, who was going to give her what she most wanted?
Mm-hmm. That's a position of
who
power.
had the best argument, this sort of thing. Yeah. And I just want to keep remembering about protest voting, because I do think council members can sometimes get into grandstanding and and it doesn't serve people well. It doesn't.
No.
It doesn't get the job done.
No, it doesn't serve the person that's doing it or the person they're talking about at all. It's not good service. What else?
Well, I mentioned ambitious plans. The Winslow Master Plan is the big one. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. The council at their recent retreat, that was
last week?
Yeah, just fairly recently. Anyway, Winslow Master Plan was the thing they were most keen to get into. Christy Carr has advocated for a housing action plan, and I'm all for that, because I think that's necessary. And I think the housing and Winslow Master Plan
should go hand in hand.
They do go totally hand in hand, and we've got to be looking at the same time at flaws in the Title 18, which is the zoning code. There's so much that is just non-functional there, just sketchy.
How do we get activism towards change for that?
Well, I'll find out. I'll find out.
Awesome.
But these things go hand in hand because you can't. The Winslow Master Plan is actually a component of Title 18 zoning, and so the changes that the Winslow Master Plan will initiate have to be put in place in various titles of various chapters of Title 18. Title 1812, Chapter 1812 is dimensional standards, and that's where the FAR base and bonus business is. I'm not sure FAR is going to really be what will serve our needs best, and certainly not the way it's been defined and administered in the past.
How about the defining of agricultural property? I know there's a certain house on a certain block that Claire cut the whole place under.
That's a famous example, and
intense agricultural. And I think they got like 3 tomato plants in their yard. It's a massive area, too.
Yeah. I haven't kept track of that at all. But
I'd like to talk to them sometime.
Well, yeah, and you should talk to Friends of the Farms about what they,
I'm a member of Friends of the Farm. I have a plot on Johnson's farm and have been there 6 years and really enjoy it.
Yeah. Okay.
Great organization. Much like
anyway, they there should be an agricultural lands recognized in the zoning pattern.
Has any of that changed since that clear cut?
I don't think anything's been done.
Have we revisited it as a group?
I don't connect the two, and I don't know. I've just heard the sort of the fiasco without knowing that it's there's a step to be taken to fix it.
So is that a planning commission or a city council issue when somebody's?
Well, that's a good question. Typically, the planning commission can't initiate any kind of activity. The planning commission has work referred to it by the city council. I want to reverse the process because I think,
or just have it a two-way street.
The planning commission, working with planning department, should be able to say to the council, "This is something that's got to be fixed, and we know what to do. Just give us some leeway to get started on a process of a code change." And I'll find out whether there's an obstacle to that way of operating or not.
All right. Yeah. So you seem to have experience with Sustainable Bainbridge, the Planning Commission. Now you're jumping into City Council. Your eyes are open. You're well-versed. You're a high school graduate from Bainbridge Island High School. You're a Spartan for life.
All right.
I like it. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Jon.
Well, I've enjoyed it, certainly. I appreciate your knowledgeability and your alertness to rumors and rumors and facts as well.
Yeah. Occasionally I come up with a fact or two.
Yeah, sure.
My life's not predicated on facts, though.
Well, I've enjoyed it. And I've probably been a little too outspoken in certain places for some of my potential constituents.
I think people need to know the honest person, and that's why this platform is really nice. I think that we can sit down and just be two men talking and have an open discussion whether I like oranges and you don't. It doesn't matter. We're having a conversation, and we can swing each other one way or the other.
That's good.
As it continues, you're welcome back to come back and talk about anything in the future. I've enjoyed myself.
All right.
South Ward candidate, Jon Quitslund.
Don't say Lundquist. That's the only mistake.
I'm going to call you John Q. Public.
That's it.
There we go.
That's Jennifer Sutton told me that's who I was.
Change your name to a superhero character.
Yeah, right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. You've been listening to the Bystander Podcast. Be kind.